الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين. فصلوات الله وسلامه على خير من أرسل سيدنا وأسوتنا ونبينا ورسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تأسى به واتبع سنته إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اجعلنا منهم اللهم آمين. إن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد، يقول تبارك وتعالى في كتابه العزيز: يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم إن زلزلة الساعة شيء عظيم يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت وتضع كل ذات حمل حملها وترى الناس سكارى وما هم بسكارى ولكن عذاب الله شديد. أما بعد, my brothers and sisters, some of us might wonder, why am I talking about the World Cup? Actually, I'm not really talking about the soccer aspect of it, but things that surround it. I have not watched a single game, and there's nothing wrong in watching it. I'm just saying I have not watched a single game. And I don't know who's playing against whom. They're just teams competing, as far as I'm concerned. But the things that happened that surrounded this World Cup shows the position of Muslims in this world and shows the position of the Western nations vis-a-vis Muslims in this world. We also, as Muslims living, whether born or immigrants, Muslims living in the Western world, in our community here, we even share some commonalities with the events that are taking place in Qatar or around Qatar. And we share some of the challenges that they shared as well, that they are sharing. And we have to step up to the challenge as well. One thing that needs to be addressed, maybe off the bat, as they say, or right away, is the media coverage of the entire event. About few days before the event started, the Western media, specifically French and British, started publishing very negative pieces of our articles about Qatar as a country. Even the team was not saved. In France, there was a caricature that was published depicting the members of the soccer team, the national soccer team of Qatar, as terrorists. They were under their clothes. Of course, all of them were playing with the jalabiya and the head covers, and all of them have big beards. And under their clothes, they are hiding weapons. And one of them actually was wearing a belt that seemed to be an explosive belt. Again, Muslims, terrorists, Muslim violence, even with soccer. Even with soccer, you are describing the national team of a country, of a sovereign country from your perspective. You're describing them as terrorists. Again, feeding into the narrative. Muslims are violent. Muslims are no good. Muslims are are this even during soccer. Even the way they depicted or they presented the country as the Qatar as at large. Anybody can Google Qatar and just see the way it looks. But they depicted it as desert. In their media, in their drawings, as desert. And you have in the desert, of course, just like Hollywood always depicted the Muslim lands and the Arabs as people who are living in the desert, few barrels of oil, some harems maybe on the side, but that is really it. That's the entirety of the country. And they describe the country just like they describe the rest of the Muslim world in very simple, very simplified terms that lack really any sophistication. Good or bad, democratic or dictatorships, or do they practice freedom or they are against freedom, something like that. All, regardless what any country has reached, regardless of the progress of any of these nations, they still can be put in certain compartments, good or bad, freedom lovers or dictatorships or things of the sort. When we talk about the media, even the way they presented criticism of Qatar regarding the way they deal with the foreign workers. Qatar, by the way, has 88% of its population foreign workers. You have the total number of Qataris is about 3 million people. Out of them, 88% of them are actually foreign workers. Now, I challenge any nation in the world, any Western nation, to accept to host 80% of its population as foreign workers. If we want to know how they are dealing with the foreigners, political asylum workers, not workers, based on humanitarian causes, people who fled countries caused by wars that were caused by European nations and by the Western world in general. You're talking about Syria, you're talking about Iraq, you're talking about Afghanistan, who initiated all of this turmoil, running away from the wars that they caused. You have in Britain, they decided to kick them out to Rwanda. They do not even process their asylum seeking application on the ground in Britain. They sent them to Rwanda. And if you get accepted, you don't make it back to Britain. No. You get accepted and you are allowed to live in Rwanda. In Australia, political asylums who ran from the same wars, ended up living on islands since 2013, for 10 years. Human Rights Watch is saying that many of them are expressing, showing signs of mental health problems because they're living in a limbo. They're neither rejected nor are they accepted. Where are they living? What's going to happen? And we're talking about families. We're talking about children living in miserable situation, not according to my description, but to the human rights organizations, the way that they are living. This is in Australia, the friendly country, the friendly people, the Somali people. So I don't know how many of them or which of them has the ground, the moral ground, to talk about, the way that you treat workers, etc. By the way, I am not endorsing Qatar, nor am I trying to promote it. I have no interest in it from that perspective. Nor am I an enemy of Qatar or an enemy of Saudi or the Emirates. They're all, as far as I'm concerned, as a Muslim, they're all statelets. These are the product of colonialism that was established in the Muslim world to carry out agenda of the colonizers. They do not represent the Muslims, any of them. But we are talking about just the double standards and the approach that they approach Muslims with. The Western nations approach Muslims to understand that it is not about right and wrong, it's not about living by your ideals, but it's about singling out Muslims specifically. If we talk about human rights and we talk about treatments, no nation has experienced the scrutiny that Qatar has experienced in 2022. If we're talking about Russia that hosted the World Cup in 2018, it just invaded Crimea and they just finished killing the Muslims in Chechnya by the hundreds of thousands. Hardly any criticism that was exercised to Russia in comparison to Qatar. China holds 2 million Muslims, the Uyghur Muslims, 2 million of them in camps. A'udhu billah, they send their men, they send their army officers to sleep with Muslim women by force in their own houses so that they mix the lineage, so that they are no longer, they're the Hans now. They are no longer some different lineage or different race altogether. We're talking about these circumstances with the world, with the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. What criticism did we hear about China when it came to this? In comparison to what we heard about Qatar. Is it because the people are Muslims? Is it because that we have different value system from theirs? Because now, not on top of that, they criticize the treatment of women in Qatar. Actually, Qatar is a very secular nation. And women, if you go and you look at the campaigns or the media and the interviews, etc., you'll see women are taking positions just like men, just like, they are, some of them covered, some of them not covered. Some of them are, as you would see in any quote-unquote advanced country. Yet still, we have to raise the issue about Muslim women. We have to raise the issue about Muslim women. And of course, the elephant in the room, when it came to the homosexuals and to the issue of the LGBTQ community. So what we hear from the West about the freedom of expression and the freedom of thought, the freedom of, to have freedom to do the liberties that you enjoy and thank God for and all of that, all of that actually dies when it comes to the issue of Islam and the issue of the Muslims. What is so difficult about respecting a foreign sovereign state that has its own moral standards, its own system, way of life? After all, the nation state is the creation of the West. The West decided to create something called nation states because they share the same history, language, religion, traditions, etc. So these people have their own language, their own traditions, their own moral standards, and they decided this lifestyle does not suit us. God help us because you said no. So in other words, really you are free to believe, you are free to exercise, you're free to think whatever you want as long as you think the way we do. The West fails to see any moral ground other than theirs. The West fails to see anything that is right, different from what they have already. In the West, morality is subjective and it's individualistic. Because the idea for them is that the human being, you and I, are the center of the universe. Everything is around our pleasure. Everything, we are the sovereign, what they call sovereign. The body is my sovereign, is what is in ultimate control. So it is about me. and what pleasures me, what satisfies me. Everything is around me. So therefore, if I decide to be a man in the morning, I decide that what brings me pleasure in the afternoon is to be a woman, I can do that. This view puts the human being as the center of the universe. In Islam, the center for us Muslims is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the entirety of the world and the entirety of the human race is created for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the center of everything, not us. And for us, we don't come up with individual moral standards to satisfy our own personal needs for the moment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set the moral standards. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. It means what? There is something called khayr, goodness, and there is something called shar, bad, evil, dictated or decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then based on that, Allah ta'ala holds us accountable to that standard, even in an atom's worth. It is not us who decide good and bad. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's decided. Not only that, we Muslims also believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's judgment is only the right judgment. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the wisest of the wise, and that's a rhetorical question in the Quran al-Kareem by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a statement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the wisest of the wise, is the most knowledgeable of all of the knowledgeable. So his hukum, his decree, right and wrong, it has to be right. And we Muslims have no choice but to submit to him subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the standards that he revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But the disrespect even of other people's beliefs. When the German interior minister comes and she should know she's a politician, she's a diplomat. When she comes and she shows against the rules of showing the rainbow colors and all of this. You know, do nations who view themselves to be equal to others, do they function like this way? Do they behave this way? Or it is okay because we know that Muslims are at the back of at the bottom, and they are not our equal. None of these countries of the Western world has the moral standard to criticize what Muslims do and do not do. After all, we have to only understand that Britain just left Qatar. Qatar was a British mandate until 1971. That's only 40 years ago, 50 years ago. They just left that country. And most of the Muslim world was under the occupation of either France or Britain. France, the one who celebrates until today, how many people it killed in Algeria, how many people killed in Africa. They have a museum of skulls. What human being, sane human being, sound-minded human being, celebrates the death and the lives that they took by putting skulls in a museum? Yet till today, they have the skulls that they killed and the people who revolted against them because of colonialism, the French colonialism. And then they have the position to criticize who started the wars in Iraq, who started the wars, and how many people did they kill in Afghanistan. Who of them is actually criticizing other nations who are destroying Muslims and killing Muslims in mass? The interior minister of India just a few days ago came back and said that we taught Muslims a lesson in Gujarat in 2002. It was massacre of thousands of Muslims. Where does the West stand with that? How many of them boycotted them? How many of them criticized them? How many of them said we're not going to do business with you? Not at all. It's all good because it suits their interest at that time. And just to show you the mindset of the mindset of the capitalist mindset, the Western mindset, that everything is for $1. So the previous Prime Minister of Britain comes out and said, and we should not criticize Qatar this much because after all they invested a lot in Britain. Because there's interest. Our interest is that we don't want to take them off. They will take their investments. So it's not a matter of right and wrong. It's not a matter of what is value, what is true, what is false. It is a matter of, what suits our interest. And I don't understand how for countries that talk about freedom, that they will try their utmost to shove down their ideas down the throats of everybody else, including us here, Muslims who are living here. The idea of transgenderism, the idea of gender fluidity, the idea of the homosexuality. Now we are beyond the idea of is it legal or illegal. Now you have to believe that that's not just moral, it's the same as being heterosexual. Not only you and I are adults. Now our children, the 5-year-olds who are in kindergarten, are taught that. They are taught that. So now we are talking about people who, you are addressing children with ideas that are so corrupt. You're addressing children. The child needs the nurse in school needs to call the legal guardian for a child before they give them an aspirin for a headache. But you're teaching them that if you want, you are no longer a male or a female, it's a matter of your choice. Things like that. And for what? Who's benefiting from this? A country that rules, that has such standards, cannot be moral. It does not have high moral grounds to tell the people this is right and this is wrong. These countries are doing that. What ground do they have to talk about Muslims and to talk about Islam or criticize Muslims here or there? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the haqq, and may Him fix the situation, the Muslim ummah, to that which is best for us and best for humanity. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يا فوز المستغفرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Just brothers, sisters, just something that worth also noting. Some of us have been reading maybe on social media. They depicted the royal, the World Cup as if it is al-Fath al-Mubin, the conquest that Muslims have done. We should not exaggerate this. It is a soccer match after all, and that has many issues and many problems in it, and the problems still after they leave. And if anybody is interested, just read articles about what happens when a country hosts such events. So far, $220 billion have been spent, for this event so far. And even if they make some money back, they're always in a loss. Countries that host this, whether it's Brazil, whether it is China, there's always a loss after this economically. There was no Islamic conquest, there is no Islamic preparation, and there were many, many rumors that came out that Zakir Naik and other scholars were there and giving da'wah, and actually it turned out to be all false. A lot of this has nothing to do. Yes, the good positive things is that many people got attracted by the hearing, the listening of the adhan, simply the adhan. They got attracted by people dropping what they were doing and going to salah, the things that we do, and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, and we do and we take for granted. Just non-Muslims seeing Muslims dropping their work and going to salat al-jama'ah, hearing the adhan. And you have many Western media that actually documented the non-Muslims going to the masajid and looking, what are these Muslims doing? And some of them have embraced Islam, but it was not a planned, organized things as the media, some are doing it. It also shows, and this is something also positive, it showed as well that most of the people, at least who were interacted, the Israeli media said that we came here to talk about normalization and to give it a positive image. It turned out that they said that nobody accepted to speak to us. Nobody would accept an interview with them. Even the taxi driver, a simple taxi driver who drove the reporters around, once they heard that they're Israelis, they're Zionists, stop the car, get out of my car. Okay, take your money. I don't want your money. Get out of my car. Most the people that who were addressed by the occupiers of the Muslim land, they were actually said there is nothing called Israel, it is only Palestine. And it shows that really the level of oppression that Muslims have, where you do not hear it, so that when you hear Mohammed bin Zayed or the likes talking about, you think there is a vacuum or everybody is on their bandwagon, and that is not true. Even, by the way, even women, Western women. I read an article in the Times of London, of Britain. that talked about a woman, a 19-year-old activist, a feminist activist who came with her father because she's afraid of what will happen to her in Qatar. After all, there were a lot of media coverage warning people, be careful, don't go there, it's dangerous. So what does she say? And I'm quoting her. There has been no catcalls, wolf whistles, or sexism of any kind. This is a Western woman, 19-year-old, coming, taking her father for safety, and she said, we don't really need it, we are safe amongst the Muslims. And this is some remnants of the existence of Islam in the hearts and the minds of the Muslims. There's just some remnants. Imagine if actually Islam was implemented and it was their way of life. Imagine if it was really the way that Islam requires us. What is happening now is exactly what's happening today. To us, it is a campaign to force the Western civilization down the throats of everybody. Because there can only be one thought, one idea, and that is theirs. And we, the Muslims here in this community, we have to actually fight that. We have to be organized to do that. We have to have da'wah that understands these ideas and how to deal with them. We have to deal beyond the individual in calling the individual to Islam, but actually reach out to establishments and reach out to the pillars of the society to reach them with the Islamic ideas. We need to think of alternatives of how we educate ourselves and how we make sure that our children are exposed to this, to the right idea. It's not about freedom. If it's about freedom, teaching these ideas in school, then why don't you teach religion in school as well? Why don't you teach morality in school? But you pick and choose because you want to teach them this, not that. This is selective freedom. This is not freedom. For us, the challenge is still big, but we have to understand the forces that we are standing against. And we have to gather our strength, and we have to organize ourselves and show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from us what He subhanahu wa ta'ala will like. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the deen and make us firm on His deen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a source of guidance to mankind. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unify the Muslim ummah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen the deen and show the haqq to everybody. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who call with the khair and call for the goodness of mankind. اللهم أعزنا بالإسلام وأعز الإسلام بنا. اللهم اجعلنا من يسمعون القول فاتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا. اللهم لا تسلط علينا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا. وصل اللهم وسلم على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Just quickly before the salah, Allah يجزيكم الخير. Just an announcement that inshallah ta'ala the masjid is having the fundraising tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Tickets are in the lobby. We need to have a strong community, and the heart of the community is the masjid. It's not just a place for prayer. It is a place where everything is supposed to take place. So please make sure that you volunteer, that we donate. Make sure that whatever we can, because nothing is small for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen our masajid, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attach our hearts to the masajid. قوموا لصلاتكم يرحمكم الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. استقيموا. Close the gaps. صلوا صلاة مودع. Prayers toward the last salah. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين.
الذين آمنوا اتقوا ربكم للذين أحسنوا في هذه الدنيا حسنة وأرض الله واسعة إنما يوفى الصابرون أجرهم بغير حساب قل إني أمرت أن أعبد الله مخلصا له الدين وأمرت لأن أكون أول المسلمين قل إني أخاف إن عصيت ربي عذاب يوم عظيم قل الله أعبد مخلصا له ديني فاعبدوا ما شئتم من دونه قل إن الخاسرين الذين خسروا أنفسهم وأهليهم يوم القيامة ألا ذلك هو الخسران المبين لهم من فوقهم ظلل من النار ومن تحتهم ظلل ذلك يخوف الله به عباده يا عباد فاتقون والذين اجتنبوا الطاغوت أن يعبدوها وأنابوا إلى الله لهم البشرى فبشر عباد الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to your masjid today, the 2nd. The following programs will resume tomorrow. Sisters class, Islamic principles class, and the elementary and middle school's youth programs. Also this Sunday will resume the tafsir halaqah. Be sure to check out our website for this week's layout on sports, classes, halaqas, and Quran circle for brothers and sisters, youth and up. Ustada Yasmin Mujahid is holding a course tomorrow titled Spirituality and Special Needs, held from 2 to 3 p.m. on the 2nd floor Musalla, and will also be available online as a webcast. Join our annual fundraising dinner tomorrow night, featuring guest speaker Ustad Ubaidullah Evans at the McKimmon Center. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. The IAR seeks qualified candidates for the volunteer role of chairperson of An-Nur Quran Academy, a full-time school that specializes in Quran memorization. Learn more about this position online. High School Girls Sports Day will be this Sunday from Asr to Maghrib in the gymnasium. Register online and join us for sports, food, friends, and halaqah. Community Bazaar will be held next Sunday the 11th from 12 to 5 p.m. Come support your local vendors and shop for food, clothes, accessories, art, scarves, and more. Entry is free and all are welcome. A $35 vendor spot reservation is required online. Every Tuesday is game hour for 3rd through 8th graders from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. A fun way to learn code, including games, art, and other creations with a step-by-step approach in learning how to program through these projects. Register online. Please take a few minutes of your time to let us know a little bit about your experience at IAR and what programs you'd like to see in your masjid in the future. The survey can be found in the announcements email. Be sure to stop by Al-Ma'idah today and treat yourself with some delicious food, also available through catering and online ordering. Jazakallahu khairan. Enjoy the rest of your week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.